And we're live.
We're live.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Good evening.
Here's
We
Dan.
have our drinks out.
Yes.
Hmm.
I almost went, but I went with a 10-year-old Armenian brandy.
Oh, very nice. Very
Here's-
nice. I went a straight Ardbeg scotch because it seemed appropriate for a 1967 TV series.
It did. It is a favorite of Mannix. He does like his Scotch water, or sometimes his whiskey.
I just throw an ice cube in there, and eventually it'll become scotch and water.
That'll work.
Yep. All right, everybody, how you doing tonight? This is a special episode of Pop Go the Writers with our friend Irene Adler here.
Hi.
I don't know if you have anything you want to hype or promote, but Irene and I are old friends. We go back a long way, and she also wrote for Bleeding Cool in the early days, which is a site I used to work for as well.
Yeah.
But we knew each other long before that. So
yeah, each other. I mean, I can't. I know it's at least a decade.
Yeah.
I think it's actually substantially longer than that.
Yeah, like the beginning days of Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Back in when Twitter was a new thing. That was
Yeah. When we all followed Internet Jesus.
Yeah, we did. Fuck him. We curse on, or is it for children?
Mm-hmm. We allow a certain amount of cursing, but I have
a filthy mouth, and that's just the way it is.
All right. So what you guys normally see when you tune in here to Pop Go the Writers is we talk about whatever the latest TV show is, whether it's WandaVision or the upcoming Falcon and Winter Soldier, or The Mandalorian, or whatever pop thing is coming up. But my friend here got herself obsessed on a TV series called Mannix from 1967, which stars Mike Connors as the title character and Joseph Campanella as his boss, Lou Wickersham. That's right. Yeah. It's too close to my own last name. That throws me off.
We can also just go with Lou, because that's...
Yes, Lou. And spelled L-E-W, which I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah, so. Lou Wickersham apparently is based on an agent that they all dealt with, which I think is hilarious.
Nice.
So that's fun. And it's fun to watch that character through that lens, because I also have known people in that genre of work. And that's pretty much... he's always got his and a headache.
Yeah. So I figured if we're watching the show, I've got my drink. I've got a handgun that I'll lose somewhere during the evening, and at some point, my nephew's going to come in and hit me over the back of the head for no apparent reason.
It is, and it could have easily been avoided if you just look behind you.
That's right. So I'm going to make sure I look forward this direction the entire episode tonight.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, in the true Mannix fashion. So, all right, we've already got some people chiming in here. We got Rosalinda, who of course was the co-host during the WandaVision, saying hey.
My bestie.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Miss Ashley.
Hello, Ashley. I miss you.
So, all right. So we're going to start. And now I got onto Mannix because you've been posting pretty regularly with photos and to the point where there was a day I don't think you posted and I got worried about you.
You did.
That I didn't see a picture of Mannix. So, but so you caused the curiosity in me to at least try the first episode. And then I found myself staying up till 5 a.m. watching the first half of the first season.
Yeah.
And now
I got obsessed with it. I got obsessed with it because when the pandemic hit, I had really severe insomnia and I couldn't sleep. And I eventually was able to sleep, but it was only from like 4 a.m. to like 11 a.m. It was this really weird thing. And I had started, I remember someone saying, you should check out NYPD Blue. It was this, and I remember thinking, I never, that one was on. It was a big hit. Maybe I'll love it. And I started watching it and I completely hated it. But I did watch it for months because, I'm a masochist. I'll watch what's in front of me. And one night happened to be flipping around. I was like, I can't watch this show anymore. I hate it. It's literally nothing that I want to watch. And then there was Mannix, and I just went, what is this wacky show? And I don't remember what episode it was, but it was sort of like mid-series.
Mhm.
And I just remember thinking that they'd put like 2.5 movies worth of material in this episode. And I was like, wait, they're running a helicopter, but also there's a gangster, and then his secretary's in peril. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I was hooked. And so that became my like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. TV show, which of course quickly changed to me buying the box set. And anything I could find, like behind me, see here, that would be one of Mike's jackets from the show. And if you look in that picture in the corner, that's him wearing it. So
I see the novels up in the corner.
yeah, I got the novels. So if we have a look around, that is the Archer from his desk through like the second season through a lot. There's the album. And then you wouldn't want to see it yet because I don't think it's gone ahead to season 2. But starting in season 2, mugs. These are the coffee mugs. I found them. I still need to get one of the blue and green ones because they're set of multiple colors. I failure that I managed to only find one mid-century modern mug from Mannix.
Well, I love how deep you've gotten into this, and I've done that on a few shows myself. I dug deep into the A&E version of Nero Wolfe with Timothy Hutton.
Mm-hmm.
That was just brilliant. I mean, and it was only 2 seasons, which was a crying shame.
It really is.
Yeah, I love the format of that and how they kept using the same actors in each. A lot of the actors just kind of kept rotating through.
Yep.
And you can see the influence of that series on my own novel series, Lucius Fogg.
Yeah, I can see that. Knowing the two, I can see the way that they are sort of. It's them flirting with it. They're not the same, but definitely got that flavor.
Well, there's only a certain number of stereotypical detectives that everybody works off of, and it's the format. There's the Sherlock Holmes, where you have the brilliant guy who's got some kind of flaw, but you see the story through his normal sidekick, and you get that with Monk and a bunch of other shows that are based off the Sherlock Holmes formula. Then you've got the Nero Wolfe formula, where you've got the genius who doesn't go out and do anything, and you got the leg man who actually is the one who does all the work. Or you got the Sam Spade type who, bucks authority and gets knocked over the head often, and that's Mannix.
Yeah.
But Mannix also comes across as one of the most woke, woke detectives from the 60s. I remember sitting down and reading Casino Royale, the original novel, and thinking that I see a lot of what became the James Bond we know.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of overt sexism.
Yeah.
In it, and it's very what's not complicated. What's the word we use nowadays?
Problematic.
Problematic. Yes, it's very problematic.
I was anxious. That was one of the things, because early on I was like, I'm very clearly getting an overly emotional attachment to this dead detective. And it's going to really suck when something happens where I'm just really disgusted with how it was handled, and I have to like back off and go, ooh, it was the times, and what's really, and it doesn't happen. And that's really strange to me, because I keep saying, you're the show from the 60s. When are you going to do something horrible?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And one of the things that really sticks with me on that character, I was watching an episode last night, and it was a guy that sort of took a swing at him, and he was a little guy that was old, very clearly not a match for him. And he was just like, I'm not going to punch you. That's like, why would you do that? That's stupid. You're not going to kick my ass. And, and so he never punches down. And of course, then tried it again. So Mannix gave him a metal pipe and said, like, okay, maybe it's fair now. Come out. And then, of course, they dropped it and ran away.
I've seen that episode. That's season 1.
It is season 1. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
I like refresh going back through some of the highlights of season 1. So I was all.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into actually some of the stuff in season 1, a couple more people popping up. We got our friend Hollis.
Hi, Hollis. Oh.
And then a friend of mine, Andrew, who guested on Pop one night.
Hello.
So it's nice to see you put a face with the woman.
Thank you.
Because you were popping up on that episode.
I do. I tend to run my mouth in the comments.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It seems Rosalinda likes the show Monk, so if we ever do a Monk episode.
Rosalinda, the executive producer of Monk, wrote the foreword to one of my Mannix books and talks about how Monk comes about because of his love for Mannix. Just
interesting. I don't see the connection between the two characters, but nice.
Well, they're both that are clever. Monk doesn't get hit as much. I think that.
No. And he would spend a lot of time going, ow.
Yeah.
Ow.
Yes. And
where Mannix seems to forget whenever he gets hit about 30 seconds later.
Yeah. Mannix, there's 2 different ways he deals with his head getting smacked. Sometimes it's he just wakes up and is fine. And then sometimes he gets ice. That's the other one. Occasionally you'll see him be like, put some ice on it. And it's like, dude, to get to the hospital, you absolutely have traumatic injury by now.
Yeah. Oh, there was the Lou Drug episode we'll get to that he did seem to take a lot of damage.
That's a favorite. I like that.
So another friend of yours, Heather.
Heather!
The text is more interesting when flawed, imperfect, a la Magnum. Absolutely. That is the one key to writing a detective is you don't want to follow a know-it-all.
No.
You know, they can be super smart, but they got to have another flaw. That's why Sherlock has his inability to deal with boredom and his drug use. That's why Nero Wolfe is the way he is, and he won't leave the house, and he has to have his beer and his orchids. They have to have flaws to make them relatable to the audience.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And, Mannix's fatal flaw is not looking behind him. So that's...
Yes. Yeah. And of course, there's Sean Delaney says, hey. So, all right. So the setup on this show is rather interesting, especially for a 1967 television series, because of the way it was centered around computers in the first season.
Yeah.
Now, I know they only kept that for the first season, and that was due to ratings. I know that Geller, was it Michael Geller, the co-producer? Bruce Keller, that's right. Bruce Keller and Lucille Ball sat down and figured out what they needed to do between season 1 and season 2 and made drastic changes. And I haven't gotten enough into season 2 to see if it's ever referenced or if they just kind of went, it's like Aunt Viv.
No, it just disappears. And for the longest time, until I guess fairly recently, they never indicated season 1. So they would just run it as season 2 on, and that is sort of a lot of people know the entirety of Mannix. Because it was so different. And part of the reason was rating, part of it was budget, because the Intertech offices and all that tech and all the just there's scenes you see where there's like 80 people in a room.
Yeah.
And like it's huge. And when they were going to cancel it, and Lucille Ball went, but I like that though. And and she went, a lot of people like that dude. I feel like we need to get rid of the computers and do it a lot cheaper. It's gonna be fine. And so it's all down to Lucy. She saved Star Trek, she saved Mannix. She's basically
yeah. So much of the shows we love today were saved by Lucille Ball.
It's really true.
Reggie Lou Productions, and
she's a true television pioneer and really sort of an amazing businesswoman. And I don't like to project, but I also look at some of the shows like like Star Trek and Mannix that have a lot in common of that. You treat people well. It doesn't matter what color they are, and it doesn't matter what they do for a living, that they're people and they deserve to be treated that way. And part of me likes to think that was maybe some Lucy like sneaking in there because she was, she was keeping those shows.
No, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I found also interesting from what I understand, when the show was created, it was actually going to be called Intertech.
Yes, that was the first season's name. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, and the whole idea, as like I was setting up the premise, is that Mannix is kind of the square peg in the round hole at this computer detective agency, or this agency that uses computers. It's high tech, and he's working for Lou Wickersham, who is an old friend of his. I take it. It seems like through the whole first season, we're constantly meeting old friends of Mannix who he served with
Yeah.
in an undescribed war.
So technically, Mannix is like Korean War. They're trying to make him a little younger, I think. Mike Connors was in World War II. So that's more back, but I think they're trying to play him a little younger. Yeah, you see a lot of war buddies. There's a whole lot that show up as the series goes on, and it's not usually a thing. Clearly, they saw bad service, and a lot of them have gone insane.
Well, it kind of felt like he had maybe done some freelancing mercenary work or something down in South America or somewhere, because there was a couple that, well, you did a great service for our nation, so we're going to, and it's like, that's not America he's talking about. That's, these small little countries.
Yeah, Mannix has gotten up to some stuff. There was a show that Mike Connors did before Mannix called Tightrope. And I think it's only one season. And you can find it on YouTube. It's not, it has been remastered. They're not really good prints, but you get a feel for it. And that was an undercover cop show. So every week was him being an undercover cop put into a different situation.
Nice.
Undercover and like save. And that one is extremely formulaic. Every episode ends with one man got away, it was me, or like one man got away, I did. Like that's sort of the last line of all the shows. And watching that, I feel like you can actually draw a direct line, and I could see that character actually being Mannix before Mannix. Like he started out doing that, lost his taste for it, moved into Intertect, lost his taste for that, ended up in his own little private office, and that's sort of
but the Intertech angle actually made it unique.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because I'm an old computer programmer. That was my job before I was writing. Well, I would write at the job, but that beside the point. So watching some of these old computers from way before my time, but it's like we're really not seeing anything. We're just seeing like printouts and ASCII code and binary ones and zeros, and it's like, and then they're looking at it like, oh, really? That's what it says, and it's like, no, you're not seeing anything there.
Magically map, and they're like, it lit up, so that's where the thing is, and it's like, pretty sure that's not how computers work, friends, but like, okay.
And I loved in the pilot episode, he walks into the office, does a fake voice, and says, "Where's Mannix?" And the guy looks it up. He says, he's over here. He goes, nah, wrong again.
Yeah.
He's standing behind you.
He was always very funny. I do really love the Intertech stuff. And I one of the only real regrets that I have in the show is that they didn't have Lou guest star once or twice a season. And, oh, hey, we could use your help back here. But I think it was really, they did want to distance themselves from that first season. And sort of keep going.
Which is an absolute shame, because there is some brilliance in that first season.
Oh yeah, no, it's fantastic.
A lot of the standard rating tropes that most detective shows use when things aren't going well, or they need to bump the ratings, or they need to were things that these guys were doing all in season one.
Like in the first episode, they're like, you know what, we should bring in a helicopter and have it like run someone down into the ground.
Yes.
Like, okay, that sounds expensive. I understand where your budget went.
Or the main character going undercover in a drunk facility,
Yes.
or the 2-part episode.
Yep.
You don't see a whole lot of 2-parters before that.
Great episode too. I really
Yeah.
like. The two of them had really great chemistry. I think they worked really well off each other.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do really appreciate about it is that it doesn't delve into like that dirty Harry, like, the boss going, "Ooh, dirty Harry, you're doing the bad thing again." It's more like it's more playful.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, and I was an interview that I heard where they're speaking to both Mike Connors and Joe Campanella.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought up said, Intertech work for a reason. And part of it is they set it up to be Mannix against sort of man against computer and that sort of thing. And they said in the first season he quits like a couple of times.
Yeah.
And his point was, you can only quit many times before the audience goes like, what is that guy's problem? Why is he not leaving? He clearly hates it there and it doesn't work for him. And so he said, like, you can't really play the hero continuously going, I don't like it. And then just staying and doing the same thing over and over again for 8 years.
Yeah. Bradley Battles points out they kept using the same one building for Intertech as like a dozen office building exterior shots.
Yeah.
That's how you save money. The one I mentioned this to you just in a text one night, but it's the one thing that surprised me is we never got a bottle episode.
No.
Because an entire episode taking place in like an empty Intertech office would have made a lot of sense, especially on a show that is having budget things.
Yeah, it would have been great. Like, he forgot something and went back, and there's, like you said, there's Hans Gruber.
Yeah. And they're breaking in to get the computer because it's millions of dollars worth of computer work or computers is what Lou says.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, actually, there's so many tropes I keep waiting for that don't show up. And that is confusing to me. Because you would just think for time crunch that they would just sort of lean on that. And I guess some of it is the character's different. Some of it is they made some of those tropes themselves, like where they come from. But yeah, it is fascinating. Like you said, there's no bottle episode. There's no, they don't have a recurring girlfriend for him. That's his weekly on again, off again. There's no drama with that. It's each story is its own story. And in that first season, each story is its own kind of short movie.
Yeah.
And part of the editing, I'm just gonna keep cutting you off all night because I can just talk about this forever. They sort of pioneered the editing where they would go from one shot to the next without like traveling. So, like in the very first season, you see Mannix, you see him load his gun. The next thing you see is like him at Intertech. It's not like, and then he gets in his car and he does the thing and he drives there, and he is, he walks through the thing. They're very clipped. That editing freed them up to fill so much in each episode. Like I think that the majority of them have a 2-hour movie's worth of plot.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
they do. It is all cram packed. I mean, it's they put a lot in it. A couple more comments here. Bradley asks, "Do we know where the building is?" It's supposed to take place in Los Angeles, right?
It is. It's in West LA. It's on. I don't remember the exact, but maybe I'll drop it in the comments later. It is still there. I don't believe the interiors and the exteriors are the same building, but the exteriors is sure, and there is a bar in it. And a bunch of us who are giant nerds have said when pandemic's over, we would like to have a Mannix convention in the bar at Intertech. So y'all are invited. Let's go.
I'm there.
Fun. You can. I've never seen you drunk, but try.
You can try. It's starting to happen a little more often now, but
oh, good. I'm so happy.
But there usually is a gummy involved too to make the alcohol make more effect.
That does help. I've stayed off for the evening.
Yep, actually, I did that last night and introduced my friend Lisa to Silverado, which she had never seen. So,
who did the music for that?
Of all the questions you asked, I'm good on everything else, but I'm not good on the music.
I can't remember who did Silver. I feel like it was Sylvester somebody. He's gonna get.
Now you're gonna make me look it up.
No, it's all right. You don't have to look it up. We're
here.
Oh,
no, I do now. Because that's gonna bug me.
While you do that, I'll show more of my Mannix things. Oh, here. So, because I have no, will to avoid death, so I now have 42 of the original shooting script.
Oh, you got those already?
They came really fast. They came from Vegas, and they're pretty amazing. I'm really excited to dig into that because so my background, I was a writer. My degree's in screenwriting. I still find that incredibly fascinating, and so it's going to be super fun for me to go through and look and see how much is the writer, how much is the director, and and that's exciting because you don't always get to see that. And I've seen transcripts of Mannix scripts before, but a transcript doesn't give you that info, who did what.
I should have just let our audience do this because they got there as fast as I did. Bruce Broughton did Silverado.
Bruce Broughton. Okay, yes, he does love Bruce Broughton. There you go.
Yeah. Sean will definitely join us for the Mannix bar.
Awesome, Sean. It's been too long. We'll all hang out.
By the way, we should tell people who who are turning in for fun, who have not enjoyed Mannix, all of these episodes are available on YouTube. That's how I'm watching them.
It's true. They're all free on YouTube. I will also say that if you end up becoming crazy obsessed like I am, it's under $100 for all 8 seasons on DVD.
There you go.
Beautifully matched. So it's really nice, clean print. The whole first series, all the episodes are introduced by Mike Connors. He does like a little introduction, a little thing where he talks about the story. It's lovely. He's in his 80s, I believe, when he recorded them.
Wow.
But still, he was very spry and healthy up till the end, and he lived in the 90s. He was an actor, so you can tell he sort of took care of himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he reprised the role of Mannix twice, and I'm bringing that up because Sean was asking if you'd finally had the chance to watch the Lucy episode, the Mannix episode with Lucy.
I have, and I'm gonna have watch it soon because he's also a huge Lucy Ball fan, and it is hilarious.
Yeah, and of course there's a episode of Diagnosis Murder with Dick Van Dyke, of course, and Mannix shows up as a recurring patient of his, and it turns out it's actually a sequel to an episode from the 1973 season.
It is, yeah. It's actually very cool that they piggybacked off that because in that episode, it's a little girl who loses her father. She's the father is shot in front of her while they're at the zoo for fun trauma.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna grow up fine. And of
Lions, tigers, and assassins. Oh my!
The little girl was also mad at her dad, so she got in her head that he died because she wished him dead. So it's like a whole bunch of fun things.
Oh, therapy. Okay.
Well, but part of the thing is this very caring person, and so he specifically says, like, I'd like to come see you again and maybe hang out and like I can sort of stick around and like be Uncle Mannix. And the last scene in that episode is him taking the kid to the zoo with the mom and like giving her ice cream, and it's very sweet. And so the fact that like he did actually stay in that chick's life forever, super sweet.
That is.
Yeah, that's Mannix. He's a good dude, super good dude. Weird. It's not not an archetype that we see very often. We see heroes and we see, you know, in the more modern things, it's much more common to see those either anti-heroes or complex heroes that have, they have like a hard thing that they're dealing with. Like, oh, they're a hero, but they're alcoholic, and they're a hero, but they really mess up. And it's super refreshing to have this character that's like, he's a good dude and he just wants to do the right thing, and getting paid for it mostly. Uh, it's not like all charity, but it's this very nurturing masculinity that I think is sort of rare. It's not something you see very often.
Yeah.
And I mean, you see, and there's a lot of, even in the first, where there's a hot chick and they've just had the thing and had their case go on, and normally that's the part where James Bond then like makes out with her, and it's like real aggressive, and like Mannix spends a lot of time just like, I'm gonna give you a hug platonically because I can tell you had a really shit day. And that's really nice.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it yet. Episode where a girl believes she's lost the married man that she was dating. So she was dating this married man, and they think that he's died in a plane crash. And Mannix like literally makes her a sandwich. Like, I brought you a sandwich because we have an Armenian proverb that grief is less with like bread. And I was like, did you just bring her carbs? Like, that's perfect. That's all they want.
This wasn't the salami and anger episode, was it?
No, this wasn't the fun. That was, and again, I need someone who speaks Armenian to walk me through it, because there are no subtitles. It's an entire scene in Armenian.
Yeah.
Just this Armenian, and you get the idea what's going on, but this guy is sort of keeping him out of the back room that he wants to go into, and says like, have a snack with me, and Mannix has a bite, and they get to talking about something in Armenian, and at some point he realizes the guy's messing him about, and he sort of tosses the salon, and very.
Ashley says carbs are second only to cheese for grief.
It's true.
Yeah.
Also had cheese, because Mannix would never make you a sandwich without cheese. I don't understand why.
I'd like to believe that Mannix would know that you like or don't like cheese and would make it appropriately.
It wouldn't make you a cheese sandwich, because he would just know that, because you would be his old friend.
That's right. We would have served together somewhere,
But you ended up in a situation at some point where the two of you were.
Yeah. You brought up his Armenian background, and they brought that into the character.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but you probably know it quite well. Mike Connor's real name is
Prekarahanya.
Right.
Yeah. So that is his real name, and so I'm going to talk about Mike Connors, because so I'm going to write a book about Mike Connors. That's my new thing that I'm going to work on. I want to do bio. There isn't one. I think that's a shame. And obviously I'm an obsessive and super good at finding things, and so I feel like I'm the right person for it. So I can talk about this for a lot. He started acting sort of accidentally. He had been in the military. He had been in World War II, and then went to UCLA on a mixture of a scholarship from the GI Bill and a basketball scholarship. So he played basketball. He was like on the team. He was a very good basketball player, apparently. And his nickname was Touch. That was his sort of basketball nickname. Like, he had the touch.
Mm-hmm.
And a director saw him playing and thought he had a really expressive face, and said, would you like to audition for some acting gigs? And he was in school to be a lawyer. His father was a lawyer, and his father had passed away when he was young, and he was going to be a lawyer. And he eventually, so they gave him the name Touch Connors because it didn't sound ethnic, which was that, back then they didn't want that. And that as far as I can tell, that he mentioned several times that was sort of one of the things that he regretted, was that he didn't get to have his own name on anything, and that sort of stuck with him. And so they did let him bring a lot of Armenian things into it, which is quite lovely.
Yeah.
And in fact, where they go back to when we meet Joe's father for the first time, there is a character with his last name in the town. They let him have that. And then the pictures in his father's home are actual pictures of Mike Connor's mom, which is very sweet. And he speaks 3 languages. You hear him do English and Armenian on the show. And it's some fun stuff. But yeah, so he started as a basketball player and then ended up in a bunch of Roger Corman films, which are terrible and completely enjoyable.
Wait, you just said Roger Corman films?
Yeah, he
That's awesome.
Swampland, which is fantastic. You should watch it. It's horrible, but it is also fantastic. It's both of those things. And Mike Connor spends the majority of the movie tied up by a girl gang that's escaped from prison looking for swamp diamonds. And the fun part is he doesn't really seem to mind.
No.
He's very friendly about being tied up. He's just like, whatever, this is cool. I'm fine with these escaped prison babes tying me up in the swamp.
Well, I mean, if you got nothing going on that weekend, right?
Yeah. But it turns out that one of them is actually an undercover lady cop, and hijinks ensue.
Oh, of course.
That's also on an episode of Mystery Science Theater 2000.
They do it on him. Okay, now I have to check that out.
Yeah, you do.
I'm going to pop in here with 2 questions. The first one from Sean asks, did CBS hire a censor who spoke Armenian after the episode?
Oh my. See, now I've got to get someone that speaks Armenian to translate that piece for me. They had some interesting issues with the censors there, in that they realized on the show that censors could object to dialogue and action, but not background art, unless they actually came to the set.
Yeah.
So there is a huge amount of naked lady art in Mannix. There's tons of naked or very scantily women art. Actually, men too. There's some naked men art in the show. They weren't just looking for the ladies, which is fun to see. And also, there is an episode where there is a full-on tit out on the beach. There is a full boob that's just out. I don't know if you could see it on the original resolution, but you can see it on the updated one. And the funny joke about that is it's an episode where his character is blind. He loses his sight for that episode, so he walks right by it and does not see the full tit that's out on the beach. And that just pleases me to no end. I think it's
nice. All right, Heather has a good question.
Heather,
if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, i.e. end of the world, do you think you would have discovered and fallen in love with this series?
That's a hard one. Possibly not. I'm not normally up watching reruns at 2 a.m. I'm normally asleep. Possibly not. And this was an odd thing. If it had been put in front of me, I feel like I would have had the exact same reaction. And for a couple of reasons. One is that I grew up on Star Trek, and I grew up on a lot of old TV. I grew up on Bonanza. I don't know how you pronounce it. My dad pronounced everything wrong growing up. So
Bonanza.
Bonanza, there you go. Bonanza and Wagon Train and Rawhide and Lucy and all those old shows, Twilight Zone, was sort of what I grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely missed Mannix. We didn't get it. It wasn't doing reruns on the TV that I got. And so it hit me in this very strange place of being incredibly nostalgic and feeling like of that time that I was used to seeing television shows, but then also being completely new and having a catalog of 8 years to go through. Mm. So it was a really special sort of intersection. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that, let's be honest, Mike Connor's beautiful, man. Just aggressively attractive is what I'm going to go with. And so, there's worse things than spending 55 minutes watching an incredibly attractive dude get hit in the head.
Yeah. I got to say, I hadn't watched any Mannix, but I knew the series. My mom was a big detective fan growing up, so I knew about all those series like Macmillan and Wife and Banachek and
Yep.
just down the line. And I've probably seen a couple episodes of all of them,
Yeah.
or the old, I don't remember which, it was like the Saturday night mystery movie or whatever it was, where they had the guy walking with the flashlight and the whistle. And then it would go into either Columbo or McCloud or, so I grew up on those things. So Mannix was on my radar, but I had never really sat down to watch it with the discerning eye that I have now.
Yeah.
And then seeing all your posts about it kind of got me. It's like, okay, I love Irene and her and I click on a lot of the same stuff. So I need to sit down and give this a shot. And like I said, I dove in. I was 7 episodes deep by the time the next morning rolled around. So,
it is continually surprising to me that it does hold up so well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like pertinent social issues right now. Like you haven't really spent a lot of time with the second season now. And I'm assuming that if I haven't completely worn out my welcome, we'll come back for a season 2.
Oh yeah.
Show at some point. But there's a lot of like social justice stuff going on. He hires a Black single mother to be his, and he never treats anything other than a completely full person that he cares about and wants the best for. Like there's never sort of that. And it could actually just go that far, but then there are episodes where her character gets to bring in and say, Joe, this person we're dealing with is Black, and if we go to the cops, they're not going to get a good accounting. And, that's never going to come to Joe because he's not like that. He's this remarkably woke character. Yeah. But they still highlight that on the show, which is an important thing. It's not just saying, oh, he's colorblind, it doesn't matter. It's saying, no, this is real. And the hero that you are tuning in for, and so you see like wrongness of it. And I find that very fascinating and very ahead of its time, actually.
Yeah.
And also, interrupt you again. You'll see a lot of Black actors in roles that are not like the typical role that they would be given then. Like there's Black scientists, there's Black doctors. There's in an upcoming episode that's one of sort of highlight episodes of the whole series. It's kind of fantastic. Joe is blind, and the person that helps him through it is a Black man. And so in this scene, he's completely helpless. He's blind. He doesn't know how to get around things. Someone's trying to kill him, and he's scared. And the people that actually step up and are the heroes in that is his Black secretary and a Black ex-military character. That was really sort of surprising for the period and very cool.
Yeah, I can think of two Black actors from season 1 that stood out to me. The episode that involved the blackmail and the special. Yeah, I think he was a special effects guy, or he was one of the guys on the crew.
Yeah.
And then the other one had to do with corporate espionage of a laser, and there was the Black head of security for one company.
Yeah.
But I also remember that he was very open about racism.
Yeah.
And how, he's like, oh, you don't expect me to be in this job. And, so they brought up those issues in 1967, which wasn't normal to bring up.
No.
I mean, you had a few shows touching on that. The odd one that first comes to mind is All in the Family.
Yeah.
Even though you got a character who's basically a racist,
Yeah.
You're dealing with like Sammy Davis Jr. comes on the show. Isn't the Jeffersons a spinoff of All in the Family? So, so it's obviously Norman Lear was a lot more woke at the time,
Yeah.
and dealing with those issues. A couple other things that have popped up here. Bradley says that he knew about it pre-COVID. He didn't know about it in the 90s, but he did find it in 2012 on MeTV.
Yes.
Which I don't think I have. I've never actually come across MeTV. Is it Me or is it ME or?
Yeah, it's METV. What on? I'm on Spectrum.
I'm on Spectrum.
So it's channel 20.
All right, I will have to check that out.
And
sounds like I'm missing some good stuff.
They play some great stuff, actually. That's sort of one of our favorites. That's Svengoolie that we do every week.
That's where you see Svengoolie. Okay. Yeah. Rosalinda brings up an interesting question. I've got thoughts on this one, but we'll let you go first on it. What do you think about Mannix Reboot, the way they've done with Magnum and Hawaii Five-0?
So I deeply want a Mannix reboot. I have okay, so my secret plan is to get biography done, and then I want to get that to be a film, and then I want to get that to be a series reboot of Mannix. And I have different ideas of what I want. You haven't really gotten to meet Toby yet, but okay. Toby is Peggy, Mannix's secretary's son. And he has a really warm relationship with Joe. There's episodes where Joe just takes him to a baseball game because he's like a kid without a dad, and Joe's a good guy, and it's not that sort of thing where it's like, I'm trying to get up on your mom. It's like, he's just decent. In fact, there's an episode where she gets shot and ends up in the hospital, and when she wakes up, she's freaked out. She says, where's Toby? And the nurse goes, who? And you hear Joe in the background go, it's her son. It's okay. And he comes up and says, oh, I took him to Mrs. So-and-so that's his regular babysitter. So it's like, this guy is a boss that clearly knows what happens to her kid. Like, he's got like a form.
Yeah.
He knows. And so I would like to see Toby take over the Mannix that. I'd like to see her son grow up to be a cop like his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe around the time of the Rodney King incident, kind of lose his stomach for it. And I would like Joe to leave him his building, his Paseo Verde building, which he ends up moving into after Intertech. And Toby thinking he's going to get rid of it and end up becoming Toby Mannix. I also think it would be interesting to eventually have Peggy and Mannix sort of tie the knot. But they had a lot of chemistry. It was sweet. I know when they specifically wanted a black actor for his secretary. Actually, Nichelle Nichols was who they wanted initially. Mm-hmm. And the network said no. And the producers and him said, okay, we'll just not make it then. We're going to go. And so, they were willing to put their jobs on the line for that. And Bruce Geller had Mission Impossible at the time. So he had something to fall back on, but Mike Connors didn't. Mike Connors didn't have anything to fall back on at the moment. He was like, it's worth taking a stand on that.
Okay, they could have absolutely worked Mannix into Mission Impossible.
They could have. Yes, they could. Mission Impossible uses Mannix Paseo Verde location for a lot of their, like, what are those places where you go and I can't think of the word. You go and it's your country's, like, place that you.
Oh, embassy.
Embassy. They used it for a lot of foreign embassies.
Okay.
But the whole point was they said the two of them won't work in the South. And they said, just let us do it. We'll keep it above board and let's do it. Let's, get it done. And it worked. And I'm glad it worked because he treats his secretary really good. and it's nice to see someone treat their secretary really good.
I'm going to pop this up real quick, Mike. Sean's saying there's memorable entertainment television. That's what the ME stands for, memorable entertainment.
I did not know that, Sean. Thank you.
I'm going to say that I'm a little different on first thing. If you get your Mannix series up and running, I expect to be called for the writers' room.
Yes.
I would be very hurt if I wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if a Mannix reboot would work because I think there isn't. It's the writing and the acting that makes the show work.
That's true.
It's not the setup.
It's true.
You know, Magnum had the whole concept of him being on Robin Astor's estate and being in Hawaii and Hawaii Five-O, or MacGyver has that gimmick.
Yeah.
A lot of the 60s and 70s detective series were based on the gravitas and charisma of the actor in the lead. Wasn't, I mean, Rockford would be horrible to redo as a reboot because James Garner was Rockford, you know? And all you'd be doing is a poor imitation of James Garner at that point.
That's why I think that you need to transfer it to Toby. I think it needs to be a homage, not a strong reboot. I also think that you could do a lot of flashback work that was sort of how this character grows up and what he learns from Mannix about being a man, and that influences him and influences decisions. But I'm just gonna start with the book, man. I'm gonna start.
Now, see, I could see it work in a different way, and if you went back to the season 1 format of Intertech and then did because computers now are so much more common and we all know about them. So it would have the man versus the machine angle would be kind of refreshing now.
Yeah, it would be.
To see like an old school detective working outside of the computer or going from the angle of more if he had adopted Lou's thinking and used the computers more.
Yeah, that would be clever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that too. Well, we'll talk, man.
Okay, something I want to get onto, and you've kind of danced around it a little bit. This show has an amazing lineup of guest stars.
Oh, it's insane.
And part of it is that it's Desilu Productions. So you get a lot of character actors from Star Trek coming over to this thing and talking about, just transferring over. I'm sorry, I'm getting two thoughts in my head at once. The whole idea of you get a lot of the actors and stuff that pop up on Star Trek regulars show up, but you also get some amazing actors. You get Ted Lynch.
Yeah,
or Ted Cassidy who plays Lurch. You get Henry De Silva, who I love in the 1776 movie as Ben Franklin.
Yeah. And
to hear him deliver the lines that same way he delivers them is so entertaining.
It's very cool.
Yeah. A young Tom Skerritt shows up in like the first or second episode.
Yeah.
I spent an entire episode figuring out why Davy Jones was on it, and turns out it's Walter Koenig.
Yeah, that one had some scuba divers, some evil scuba divers.
Oh yeah, he gets shot by a harpoon gun. Shot up with a harpoon gun. In like a anonymous meeting. Al-Anon or whatever it is. Yeah.
It's like a group therapy session that they all.
Yeah. And then also there's a couple times in the first season, I don't know if this continues on in the rest of the series, but there are live bands playing, and in one episode it's Neil Diamond.
It's Neil Diamond. It's true. I love that episode. That is
and the fight goes on the stage, and Neil Diamond comes back and goes, "Do you mind if I finish this set alone?"
My favorite that episode is I think at one point Mannix sort of walks in and he's listening to Neil Diamond and he sort of shakes his head and goes like, "These crazy kids and their music today." It's sort of his face, and I can't stop laughing.
Yeah. Or Buffalo Springfield is in one of the episodes.
Very episode, yeah. No, they don't get as many musical guests. There's another actor, a musical actor. God, was it Lou Rawls? I think it's Lou Rawls ends up in an episode,
Oh
and
wow.
he's full song, but then he's like the lead guest star and is amazing. It's a great episode, and it was those things where I kept going, "Is that really Lou Rawls? Is he like an actor too? Is that?" Yeah, apparently he's quite an actor as well.
And then we had an episode with Dana Muldaur and Norman Fell in the same episode.
Yeah, I think she ends up in at least 2, but I think it's 3. I think Jessica Walters is in several.
Yeah.
Who you would know from Arrested Development. She's the evil old lady in that. She was very hot when she was young.
Oh yeah. I noticed in one of the final episodes in season 1, it may even be the final one. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the actor who would go on to be like Jessica's best friend on Murder, She Wrote.
Oh yeah. I don't know the name either, but you're right. Yeah. And Mike Connors ended up on Murder, She Wrote, but not as Mannix.
Yeah. But so yeah, I find the support characters. I know that I haven't seen it yet, but you posted a picture. You sent me a picture of Sam Elliott. No. Yeah.
Sam Elliott.
Yeah. Pre-mustache.
It's literally like he's running around naked. It's very disturbing.
It is. It's very strange to see a mustacheless Sam Elliott. That's just wrong.
I recognize him until he did this little smirk thing with his lip, and I went, oh, "It's Sam Elliott!" Like it just suddenly hit me because it's his little smirk that he does, and I was so thrown by the missing mustache. No, the guest stars are amazing. They get very high quality guest stars. They reuse them, and that's a couple of things. So apparently, Mike Connors literally just gave the casting department a list and was like, "These are my friends. Please hire them if you can," which is great.
Yeah.
Like these people can work. And apparently he was also fairly good at like if someone was going to lose their benefits, he'd get them on like as a thing, which is quite lovely. And another thing that I think is sort of great is that so they shot like 6 days a week on that show. It was
wow.
Yeah. And I remember reading him saying something along the lines of, whenever I did a film, the first day I was because I was new and I didn't feel comfortable and I didn't feel like open yet. And so I knew that like second and the third day was when I started to really give good material. That's when I started to really give good performances. And so he said, I tried to make my set in a way that when you came on day one, you felt like you belonged there and we were happy to have you. And we were so glad you were there and that you were comfortable and ready to work. And that way we got great performances from day one.
Nice. Yeah, that's the way you want to set. I mean, you have to be very vulnerable to be an actor. I mean, you get on there and you're just opening yourself up. And even if you're playing a character, but there's still that emotional, ripping open a scab. And so, yeah, you need that sense when you walk on a set.
Yeah. You're welcome here and you're being taken care of and it's fine. And no one's, gunning for you. I think that really elevated those performances. I think that when you are in an environment where you are respected and you are treated with respect, I think it's a lot easier to do good work. And I think that Hollywood nowadays, there are sets like that, and then there are sets that are incredibly toxic, and they're that give good performances in spite of.
Joss Whedon. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's some great work there, but it wasn't a fun set.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Bradley brings up something in a direction I wanted to go anyway, but he talks about he likes how Mannix has that pre-Rambo era of little snub-nosed 38 instead of a deadly as somebody as deadly as a Desert Eagle or a Walther PPK. And I agree, but the things in the show, the guns and the cars, were pretty much disposable. I mean, Mannix had his Oldsmobile Tornado,
Yeah,
which I believe was actually fixed up by the same guy who did the Batmobile.
it was. Yes.
Okay,
It's sold,
but
and I'm enraged that I don't own it.
oh yeah, that I would love that car. But then there's so many other vehicles that he drives
Yeah,
that are pretty much throwaways.
they are.
And it always throws me off, and I don't know if this was something that was normal in the 60s or it only happened in TV shows, but people sliding across the seat and getting out on the passenger side.
Yeah. I did grow up with some. Yes, there's just nothing. Just the seatbelts sort of, if they have them, are shoved down and you just sort of move across. They had 3 cars at all times because apparently one of them was always broken. And there are also some repeats of outdoor footage of him driving a car, which you can notice because one of their cars has like 2 headlights and one of them has like a set, like a double set, and one of them has a single set, and they don't always match because
Yeah.
apparently very finicky.
Yeah. It appears that I missed an O. It's actually Toronado.
Yes, there you go. It's not
Yeah. I see that word in my mind immediately. He goes, oh, that's tornado.
I know that in that first season, where they have the really nice like commentary with Mike Connors and Campanella. The first time they see that car, I think it's Campanella says, "Oh, that was that car horrible balance that was so bad to drive." Like, out, and they go off for like 10 minutes. They're like, "Oh yeah, that car was a nightmare," and that's another thing that's completely fascinating to me. And it's the thing where I don't think you could have had that show and be successful without Mike Connors. Super athletic dude, super talented dude. Did a lot of the did the majority of his own stunts. Didn't do all of them. Did a great deal of them. And at one point, they like sent him to like race car driving school, and we're like, "Can you learn how to do that and come back?" And then just that's insane.
Yeah. Bradley was mentioning that earlier in one of the comments that he used that he would learn most of the stuff that Mannix would do, like that, or I guess flying at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane. It's insane. It's
Yeah.
just and there is this very strange disconnect of being super anxious about a person that is dead
Yeah.
while you're watching them. But there's so many episodes where my husband and I are sitting there going, Joe, don't do that. Your knees, like, oh, it's gonna come back for you later. It's gonna hurt you. Don't do that. Or we'll be sitting there going, Mike, no, don't run down that hill. You're gonna fall.
Oh, the episode in season 1 that for no apparent reason starts off with the people from Intertech running an obstacle course, but all in full white.
Yeah.
White, almost like slacks and a white sweater vest or a sweatshirt, and they're all running. And Mannix is like stopping to have a cigarette on the course.
Keeps running up trees. No, that one is one of his singularly most cool moments where he runs up a tree and hides, and then a chick pulls out a cigarette like at some point, and he drops out of the tree to light her cigarette.
Yes.
I was like, that's some solid work there. Like,
And Lou is running the course. It's like that's the boss.
I know. I want to hug him and make him not run. I worry about, like, again, they're both passed away. I don't need to worry about them.
Yeah, but there's an episode where someone asks, describe Mannix, and he puts out like it's like as a cop describing him. He goes, "Well, he's 35," and I'm like, "No, he's not.
No, he's not.
He's like 42 at this point."
Yeah.
First thing, that cop is bad.
Like, you are not observant, friend.
Yeah. Sean says that Mike Connors is the less toxic Robert Conrad.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Mike Connors is incredibly better looking than than Conrad, but that's okay. Like, he's also a good-looking man, but not as fun.
I think what Connor's had over Conrad is height.
Height.
Conrad always struck me as short. I don't know if he actually was, or maybe he just stood by John Larroquette too often on Black Sheep Squadron.
Funny. No, you can honestly just appreciate Mannix on an eye candy level. That is a good looking dude and some snazzy from that time period. It gets a little harder as it gets to the 70s, and there's some very 70s looking outfits.
You've posted a few.
One of my friends commented on one of the pictures in a very obnoxious jacket, and it said, he said, do you know how many weavers died to make that jacket? I went, quite a few. I'm pretty sure it was not.
I have a hard time with shows in the 70s because of the wardrobe and stuff. 50s, 60s, 80s, 90s. Well, 80s is a little tough too sometimes with the
80s are that rough patch of just.
80s is the grunge music of fashion. It's like, why did we do this? Why?
I will say this though about the 60s. Okay, yeah, some of Mannix jackets, like that one back there, are kind of obnoxious, but at the same time, they're making an effort. That's some dandy stuff there. There's some maybe they're presenting something, giving it to the ladies. I will say his hair is thing, and I feel like more men should have pompadours like that. I'm just gonna say right now that y'all do that.
You want to see the return of the pompadour, huh?
I do. I want the pompadour to come back. I actually go back and forth where I go like, I should cut my hair into a pompadour, and I know I don't have, like, I'm gonna get real jowly if I do that, and it's gonna be very unattractive. But part of me just really wants that haircut because I think it's baller. I love it.
First thing, you do realize that you're talking about men getting pompadours, which means that would follow by Elvis imitations.
Well, Elvis.
Oh, you like my hair here or there?
I feel like, okay, Mike Connor, Shatner, and Elvis are all that really gorgeous male beauty sort of,
Wait, did you put Shatner in there?
Shatner back in the day on Star Trek, he's a beautiful man.
All right.
And back in the day, Captain Kirk can get it. I mean, he got a little not cool in his politics as he got older, but he was a good-looking fella.
This is completely off topic, but you mentioned Shatner. I don't know if you know this story or not, but I came up recently with the passing of Christopher Plummer and how Shatner was like 6 months behind Plummer wherever he went because they both grew up in Canada, and there was just like a year or two difference. So everywhere that Shatner went, Plummer was already there. He went to this theater group and that theater group, and they were doing Henry V.
Ooh.
And Plummer was the lead, and Shatner was the understudy.
Wow.
And one night, Plummer got, I don't remember if he got sick or something, but he was actually on medication that would not allow him to perform at all. And he even got stopped at the door of the hospital and sent back to his bed because he was trying to get to the performance. And Shatner suddenly got called to perform. And Henry V is huge, monologue after monologue. And Shatner had never had a chance to perform with the cast.
Oh, wow.
So he just had it memorized the best he could. And I've heard both Plummer and Shatner tell the story, but he said that he had such a hard time remembering the lines that he would pause a lot. And at one point, he completely couldn't remember. And there was an actor where normally you would turn to the side and get the stage manager to tell you the line.
Sure.
There was one actor in the cast that knew everybody's lines. So he would, anybody during the rehearsal, they would just turn to him and he'd have the answer. Well, here they are in a live performance and he's trying to remember, and the guy's playing Henry's brother. So in the middle of the speech, he cannot remember it. And he just goes across the stage and he puts his arm around his brother and he goes, "What's the line?" And the poor actor is just like, what? So, and at that point, it came back to Shatner. So then he took his arm off of him and he walked back over and started giving the line. Well, the critic review the next day hyped two things. One was how good the performance was, and his staccato delivery brought so much emphasis to the part.
Oh, funny.
Which I guess he didn't have prior to that.
So he was like, this is the hill I'm going to die on. I'm going to do.
Yep. Or and
I am going to perform like this forever.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my best William Shatner. Please.
Basically all you have to do is put a few more pauses than anything Christopher Walken says, and you have Shatner.
You know, I'm going to get on a slight tangent here, but I always felt Star Trek had a real Shakespearean line delivery occasionally, and I wonder if that was all down to Shatner.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It really, really was. But yeah, so and then the other thing was the critic really applauded him for the choice of, in the middle of the battle, he needs strength and he goes to his brother and just embraces his brother for a moment and then returns renewed. It's like
with the lines.
Yeah. But Plummer said afterwards, he goes, "What in the hell did Bill do? Why are they loving it so much?"
You know, I don't like to out myself as a complete nerd for my entire life, but I've been a complete nerd for my entire life, and I have an autographed picture of Christopher Plummer from when I was a small child, and I wrote to him.
Nice.
Sort of adorable. I have a lot of autographed pictures from people I wrote to as a child because I didn't really do anything. I just sat in my house and wrote letters to people.
The only actor I wrote to as a child was somebody that no one's going to remember, an actor named Rex Cutter, who played the Cylons on Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, I remember the Cylons. I didn't. The name didn't stick with me, but yes, I remember old style Battlestar Galactica.
Yep. So he sent me an autograph picture. So
I have a ton. I think my favorite of all of them, if I'm really going to go into it, I have one from Jack Lemmon from right before he passed away. It was like a month and a half before he passed away. Really sweet. I always love Jack Lemmon, which, bringing it back to Mannix, you should see Good Neighbor Sam. It is very funny. And they're both in it together, and he gets to go up against Jack Lemmon, and they're hilarious together.
All right.
They're a great team.
Speaking of, let's get back to Mannix season 1. And the relationship between Mannix and Lou.
Yeah.
Is brilliant.
It is. They're fantastic together.
Yeah. There is the episode where Mannix actually calls him daddy.
I do like that one.
I believe there's actually 2 times he refers to him as daddy.
Daddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of snark.
Mm-hmm. But what I love about it is that Lou comes across for most of the series or the season as this corporate head, the guy who has the idea of starting a detective agency using these computers.
Yes.
But when suddenly he's out in the field, it's seamless between the two of them. And suddenly it's like Batman and Robin out there.
Yeah.
You know, they just know that, oh, I went this way, you went that. There's no communicate. There's no words. Were they war buddies? Were they? I mean, what do you know about the background of the 2 characters?
There is no background of them together that I can find. I do know that, yes, they work beautifully together. And I think that Lou sort of unfairly gets cast as, you know, the guy sitting there going, McGarnagle, and like giving him a hard time for bucking the rules. Where you're right, Lou is actually an incredibly talented agent on his own. He can do all that. He can do it all backwards.
As long as he's not on steroids.
As long as it's not, he goes really wacky on steroids. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's interesting. One of the things that I remember about the series as a whole is they said, this is in a book called Now Back to Mannix, which is fantastic. You should all read it. That the series never needs to denigrate any of the other characters to make its hero seem better. So they don't need to, you know, a lot of the shows where it's like, ooh, I'm at odds with this character. Like think of like Lestrade. Like Lestrade's a big dumb stupid idiot, and
Yeah.
he needs to be around to be a big dumb stupid idiot so I look better. Mannix doesn't need that. Mannix is fine with everyone being, on the ball.
Yeah.
I feel like that really helped that relationship with Lou, is that there's respect there. I don't think Mannix would have stayed as long in Intersect if it weren't for Lou, because I think he does respect him, and they obviously work very differently, and they obviously have very different ideas about how they should be running the business. Uh, he respects him,
Yeah.
and that's a sort of a thing. And I like that. I like that later on, as the series progresses, he has a lot of friendships with cops, and I like that every once in a while there might be a bad cop, but for the most part, he works really well with the cops, and it doesn't turn into, ooh, Mannix the private investigator against the cops. It turns into like him going there and being like, I'm in a bad place. Can you guys help? Or them
Yeah.
saying, oof, Mannix, what are you up to? Can you give us a shot with this? And I like that. I like that it doesn't need to tear a character down to make its hero seem better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do appreciate that as well, because there's the stereotype of this particular detective would be that he would buck authority.
Yeah.
And he does it a little bit with Lou, but not in Lou's authority, but in Lou's belief of the computer system.
Yeah.
So it's not against Lou. And the only time you see him going up against cops is when he's a bad guy, when the cop's bad, or the one episode that the cops pretty much pull him in as a decoy and don't tell him.
Yes.
And have him try to escort a woman who ends up being a female cop and gets killed, and he's pissed about it. And appropriately so.
Rightly so, yeah.
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 Yeah. And I do like the fact that, as Bradley points out, the line that pops up a lot, you a cop? Private.
Private. Yeah. And it was different at that time period, because I don't think if you had a private investigator now, I actually have had friends that were private investigators in modern times, and none of them would refer to themselves as cops.
Yeah.
But they do back in that time period, and it was different. And yeah, are you a cop? Private. Yeah, different.
Yep.
I like that that Mannix is going to do his own thing, but he doesn't need to. It's not Dirty Harry. It's not, I'm going to be angry and gruff and give you a hard time about it. There's a great episode in the first season where he says to Lou, like, I think you should fire me, because I'm not going to do the stuff you want me to do. And
Yep.
obviously not going to work out. So, like, you should just get rid of me. And Lou's like, you're really good though. And he's like, I know, but I can't do it your way. And that's actually a very frank discussion of, I am not meant to be working in this situation, but I don't hold that against you. He knows who he is and knows what he wants to do.
And they set that up in the very opening minutes of the show.
Yeah.
When he walks in and we're introduced to Intertech for the first time, and he pops into one of his coworkers' office and goes, only one piece of paper on the desk at a time. And then you go into Mannix's office and it's cluttered, and he walks over and takes the coat and puts it in front of the camera. And the whole Big Brother is watching at that moment that Lou's got cameras in all his detectives' offices.
Yeah, super not great, Lou. Not great.
Yeah. It's like, how well would we be working if we saw that there was a camera watching us all day long?
I actually had a job where there was a camera, and basically we just learned all the places. That's where we did all the obnoxious stuff. They're not very useful. And so it's basically Mannix equivalent of putting his jacket in front of it, and then Lou has to horn in on the intercom and say, move your jacket. Yeah. I want to look at you. And you know what? Who doesn't want to look at Mannix? He's beautiful.
Yeah. Bradley brings up another good point. Mannix's ethics, how he'll refuse cases based on certain types, like he doesn't do divorce cases or other than if it's his own ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
There's always that caveat.
Yes.
Did I sleep with her? Well, then it's okay. But yeah, he doesn't do cheating wife following. Yeah, he doesn't do the stereotypical stuff. And bringing up Silverado, he reminds me a little of Kevin Kline's character in Silverado. And Brian Dennehy describes him as the story of the dog and how he turned on all of his people to save this dog that didn't even like him because you never know what Payton's going to care for.
Yeah.
And in the end, it turns out it's Linda Hunt is the one he cares for, and it's used against him. So Mannix, you never know what he's gonna care for, but if he does care, then he's in it till the end.
Absolutely, and it's very refreshing and sort of it's one of the reasons I love the character is that he wants to do what he thinks is right. He doesn't need you to tell him what is right. He can work it out for himself. He has his sort of ethics that are there and that are sort of very close to him. And he's not stuck on it so much that you bring up a good point of why what he's doing is stupid. He won't listen to you. He'll listen to you. And that comes across a lot with Peggy, where he'll be doing something and she'll say, "Hey, Joe, maybe pay attention to this." And his character will sit there and go, "Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Maybe I should listen to this other person." And I like that openness. It's like openness that is coupled with that passion of I'm going to do what I think is right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fun. That's a fun thing to watch.
Do you think that had they found a way to keep Lou in the later seasons would have been better for the series? Or do you think the change was the right choice?
So I think the change to have him move into his own office and have his own detective, I guess, agency, you'd call it, was correct. But I really would have liked to have seen Lou come back more. We do get to see Joseph Campanella in another episode, but he is playing a completely different character. He's not playing Lou. He's just randomly playing someone. It's weird. There's a big scene where he showers in front of Mannix, which I think is hilarious. I will never stop laughing at that. It's just literally like, follow me through the gym. We can talk while I do. And I'm like, kind of weird, guys. I've never had someone ask me to talk to them while they're taking a shower.
I actually have.
For you, Dan.
It's.
So I would have liked that. I would have liked to have seen that character show up once or twice a season. I don't think it was sustainable for him to keep working at Intertech past that first season. I think that was the right call. I would have liked to have seen the characters back because they had great chemistry. They worked well off each other. They were they had interesting reactions to each other, and they felt like like you said, they felt like there was a backstory that you really get, but you felt like it was there. Yeah.
Now, see, you have the advantage of having watched a lot more episodes than I have.
Yes.
But seeing the switch, I've started watching season 2. Seeing the switch to a more standard detective series, even with the advances of having a Black woman as his secretary, stuff like that, it feels like it's losing some of what made it unique.
I can see that. I remember hearing someone refer to it as there were shows that you tuned into to see what happened, and then shows that you turned into that were like Mannix, and you tuned into it because you wanted to see what your friend Joe was up to. And I think that's really it. At that point, it's you are being pulled in because you find the character interesting and you'd like to check in with them.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. There are some shows that you're following the character and not the overall plot.
Yeah.
The most recent that comes to mind for me is White Collar.
Yeah,
Tuning in to see what's up with Burke and Caffrey, because it could be anything at that point. But they were such great characters, and the chemistry between the two of them, though so opposite, was so fun.
I felt like that with Deadwood. I wanted to see what Al was up to, not necessarily what the plot of that week was.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch that character, and I wanted to watch where that character started and where that character ended up, and to see, how it moved. And I don't. Did you watch Deadwood?
Oh yeah.
There's some moments in that show that are some really beautiful character growth for Al Swearingen. Specifically, like when he gets his finger cut off. And then up until that point, you've seen him sort of not brutalize his prostitutes, but take advantage of. And while he's definitely the better boss to work for than the guy next door, still not great all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a great moment where he just had his finger chopped off, and he's pretty rattled. And he's having a conversation with one of the prostitutes who's like, "Should I go down on you?" And he sort of holds her by the head, and she says, "I don't like it when you shove my head." And it's this moment where he is able to take that experience of being held down and having his finger cut off with, maybe it's not nice to shove my hooker around that. And it's that little bit of growth is very realistic, because you don't expect Al Swearingen in that
to grow at all. Yeah.
To suddenly be like, "I'm gonna make you my wife." But it's him being able to step back and say, "I didn't like it when I didn't have a choice in the matter. And I can see that this person is a person, and they didn't have a choice in the matter either." And he's actually quite affectionate with her, and he says something like, "You don't like it when I shove your head around," and she goes like, "It's fine." Like, "I don't want to get into this right now. I don't want to talk to you." And he sort of pets her on the head and says, like, "Oh, you're lying." But it's sort of like this affectionateness of, "I understand that there are things that human beings don't like, and you're also a person." So
for me, one of the things that got me with Al was it's something I had used in a comic about a year or so beforehand, and the whole idea of talking to a severed head. So when Al had the guy's head in the cupboard behind him, I'm like, I can identify with that. That's a great rating trope.
Yeah, I do like that one. Was that one? Oh, what was that character's name? I can't remember.
I don't remember it either. But I was writing a book for someone, a comic for someone, and they had a lot of dialogue that they wanted this guy to say, and he's basically by himself.
Yeah.
Through like yeah. So he and the start of it was him chopping off the head of a siren. So I just had him put it in a grocery bag and put it on the seat in his car, and he just talks to it for like four episodes of the comic.
That's a good trope. I like it. We should use it more.
Oh yeah,
more
severed heads.
Yeah, more severed heads.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sean has a question.
Sean, yes, hit me.
Sean wants to know: do you think the fact that he had tech like a mobile phone helps the show hold up today versus a late 70s, 80s detective show where they always had to find a pay phone to check in?
That's a really good point, Sean. I do think that's great. You're right. He had his car phone, and while it isn't perfect, it's a lot better than a lot of other things. It was very technology forward, and I think that at the very least, it helps move the story around in ways that you have. And again, I think one of the show well nowadays is that fast pace. It's almost moving at the same pace of modern life.
Yeah.
In that, rawhide is not. That sort of thing. So yeah, that's a really good point. I agree, and I think you're correct, and you get a cookie.
All right, we'll have to note that down. 1 cookie for Sean. All right.
One, but it has to be gluten-free, and then 1 for Ashley with no pork products.
Right. You don't really see a lot of pork products in cookies.
I like bacon cookies.
Okay.
Bacon.
With an O, yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right. So I'm sorry, say again.
I said your cookies won't have any green onions.
Thank you. All right. Well, we are at the 90-minute mark, which is how I've been trying to keep the show, though I think some of the episodes have actually gone close to 3 hours one night.
I can run my mouth, but I don't think I can run my mouth for 3 hours.
You might be surprised. Depends if we had a few more of these, we could go on for.
It's true. You know what? I feel that's actually a problem.
Oh, that's horrible. How did that happen?
Because I have 3 bottles of on the way, but they're not here yet. That is completely wrong and stupid.
Yeah, that's a bad choice there, I got to tell you. All right, was there anything else about season 1, since that's what we're focused on, that stood out to you specifically?
Specifically in season 1, I think that the character grows out of season 1, but I feel like it's very organic, and I see like everything that he starts doing makes sense. There, even though they greatly changed the format, I think that the changes to the character make sense in the way that he's now moved into a small office. He doesn't have a big overhead. He doesn't have anyone taking care of anything for him except for Peggy. And I mean, there's moments too where he'll be like, "Can I have some coffee?" And she'll be like, "I'm busy," and he'll go get his own coffee. So that sticks out to me, that it is growth, but it's growth that makes sense. It's not like just a random change that feels shoehorned, I guess. Trying to say. I also I like to see that some of the guest stars from season 1 end up later. And then in a weird thing that you will not know till later, I don't have an answer to this question, and if anyone does, please enlighten me.
Okay.
But there's an episode in season 1 that is it Skid Marks on a Dry Run? I feel like that's that episode. I can't remember the title, but I think that's the right episode. Where the politician hires him to find dirt on him.
I remember the episode.
So later on in season either 6 or 7, they reshoot that episode with some of the identical dialogue.
Huh.
William Shatner is the politician in that one. And that's weird. And I want to know what happened, that they used the exact same story, and down to like there was some lines that are identical. I know at one point he says, they say that all secretaries are a little bit in love with their bosses. Is it true? Same exact line. So I want to know if anyone knows why that is. Like, I don't know if a script they were working on, like the writer died in the middle. I don't know if there was a writer's strike and they're like, just pull one of the old ones, we'll reshoot it.
Yeah.
If anyone knows that, I would love to know background on that, because that is bonkers.
I know that's something they used to do in comics a lot. They would just had a different artist to draw the same script.
The same script.
But, yeah. And it's just usually by deadline or there's a problem. So I'm sure it's something like that. But yeah, I'd like to know the story on that too.
Yeah. Because they didn't really syndicate that first season the same way. They didn't air it with the other episodes. Like, it wasn't a problem that they would be running into these 2 episodes at the same time. But I find that just insane.
Yeah. For some reason, Bradley is sharing a cookie recipe with us.
Ooh, excellent.
So 2 cups of unsifted flour. You need some 2 sticks of butter, half cup of sugar.
Yep.
350 for 18 minutes. Use a pizza cutter to make either zigzag or straight lines, or a straight poke fork. I recommend using 90% oat flour. Okay.
Oh, that sounds good. And then give one to Sean, and then obviously Bradley will also get a cookie because he shared the recipe.
So one of the things that jumped out at me about season one, but besides the fact that he gets knocked out constantly and he loses his gun constantly,
Yeah, he loses a lot of guns.
is the humor. There's a lot of subtle humor. Two examples that pop into my mind. One where he's questioning this or trying to get information out of this guy he knows who's a gangster, but he also sells carpet. And when his goon is about to kick his ass,
That's right. Yeah.
The goon's about to kick his ass, and he goes, I would like that carpet. And the guy's like, hey, don't mess up the sale.
Don't mess up the sale. Yeah. And it's a horrible white carpet, if I remember.
Oh, yeah, it's a white shag.
Don't put white shag in your house, guys. That's a horrible idea.
Okay, don't put shag in your house. That should be the first rule. But no white carpet.
Extra, don't put white shag carpet in.
Yeah.
You're right. It is very funny. There are some very funny moments in the series.
Yeah, and then there's the episode with Larry Storch.
Yes.
Where he's playing this character that reminds me almost of Pat Harrington from One Day at a Time, where he would always have something extra to say. He'd come back, or how Columbo would, and at one point and then he finally leaves, and Mannix goes, "I really thought he was going to come back one more time. He had one more comeback on him."
Yeah, there is some genuinely funny moments in it too, which. I think that helps it too. I like a funny show. Yeah,
but it realized it was funny, and that's what's neat.
Yeah,
it didn't try to be funny, but it knew when the natural funny moments were.
We're in there, yeah. It's a really well written show. I mean, and like it is. You look and you go, that hangs together really nice. And it's. I look back at that period of writing there, and let's say the 40s through the 60s, and there was some of the best television writing that ever existed was in that time period. You have the Twilight Zone, which some of those are just classic, and there's Twilight Zone episodes that are a little twee, but there's also ones that are, I mean, you watch it and it's every bit as good as it was when it aired. It really is, and I think that's kind of the thing I'm getting with Mannix. I haven't seen an episode where I've been like, wow, that was lame. They should have done that. Every episode I'm entertained.
Yeah. There's a couple episodes that make me a little uncomfortable because it's like somebody's doing something stupid or you see what's going to happen.
Sure.
But that's any writing. And as a writer, you see those things.
Yeah.
But, Bradley says that he's knocked out so many times, as I recall, like 90 plus times. And I have a theory that he gets knocked out so hard in season 1 that seasons 2 through 8 is in a coma dream. So that's why he suddenly has this new secretary. He's not working for Tech anymore because he's basically next to dead.
I think that would be kind of fantastic if in the last series he woke up and was like, "Oh, hey, Lou, I had the craziest dream and you were there and you were there."
You were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was you were in the shower at one point. I don't.
Shower. Weird. I feel like we have some stuff to work out.
Yeah.
But yeah. No. That is the most unrealistic part of the series. And you do have to get past that is just the amount of head trauma that he's okay with.
Yeah.
Also though, I do appreciate that it is a series that is willing to take its leading man and make him vulnerable. And at that point, you care about the character. And so when the character is vulnerable, you go, ooh, it obviously, it made it for 8 seasons. So you don't have to worry that. But that's a fun thing to watch. I can't think of another detective show where they spend so much time with you worrying about the physical well-being of your leading man.
They had an episode where he spent the climax of the episode in a straitjacket.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That episode for but yeah, no, and at the end, he literally the patient and the shrink start making out, and he's like, "Hey, could you guys help me get out of this jacket that I'm stuck in? I'm not here, but you're making it weird for everyone."
Yeah. I kept expecting to do the old dislocate the shoulder to get out. And it's like, that's what they would have done in most normal detective series. And like, no, he still kicks the guy's ass, but he's stuck in the straitjacket.
Yeah, and then he just stays in it like for a good, that's the last shot is him sitting there.
Yeah, you enjoy your snog. I'll be here.
I'm here until you guys are done. This is awkward.
Yeah. But then again, it was Richard Mulligan. So,
So it was it's a weird show. There's some weirdness where you go, that's not normal. Like I mean, maybe now where we do quirky, but like they didn't do quirky so much back in the 60s.
No.
And there's some quirkiness to it that is very strange and enjoyable.
Sean asks if you've tracked down the Mad Magazine parody yet.
So I found it on eBay, but I have spent too much money on other things. So I will eventually get it. It's just when I have the cash again. So I have been working very lazily on my phone, and I just bought a new laptop. So that's what I'm gonna use to start my book, and yeah, I hope it goes well. We'll see. I have contact information for several people that I think would be amazing interviews for it.
Nice.
Now I've just got to come across as not a weirdo, which is going to be difficult because, like I know who I am. So I be my charming self and not my weird self and try to get them on board.
I would honestly start off with explaining how you discovered this series during the pandemic and that it helped you get through, and you feel that it didn't get enough attention, nor has Mike Connors.
Yeah.
And then they'll see it as, oh, our show helped you.
Yeah. I like that. I like, and honestly, I do think there is, this was actually something my husband brought up that I think was really interesting to me, at least, and I hope it would be interesting to other people, is that we've had so many like horrible role models recently in Hollywood. So it's been all this like Me Too stuff of just grossness and just people taking advantage and people being awful. And we haven't had a lot of examples of like, how do you navigate that business while being a decent person? And I have so hard to find literally a shred of Mike Connors being not great. And I haven't found it yet. And I don't think I'm going to. I think that he was genuinely a really good dude. And I think that he should have been more famous. I think he was a great actor. I think he was really good looking. I think he had interesting choices when he was acting. And I honestly think that it came down to him being a really good dude that wanted to go home and hang out with his wife and kids. And I think that that's kind of a role model that I think we need, like, a dude that's like, "I wanted to be a good person and live by what I thought was right."
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that should be celebrated, and I think that I don't think he got as much recognition as he deserved, and I would like to remedy that.
If there was a better place to end this episode, I don't know what it would be. That is a perfect way to wrap this up.
Thank you.
No, thank you for joining me tonight. This has been a lot of fun.
It has been fun. Thank you.
Yeah, and we will definitely come back and revisit this series once I get a chance to get a season or two further down the line.
Awesome.
Get a little more into Peggy and whatnot.
Yeah.
But thank you to everybody who has joined us. We've had quite a few viewers. Bradley, Sean, Ashley, Heather, Rosalinda. I think that's everybody that popped up on the. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but You guys have all been great in joining us in the conversation. If you are watching this on Twitch or YouTube, please do me a favor, take a moment and hit the like button or the subscribe button. I do this particular Popco the Writers Weekly next week. What?
It's very cool. Like, you should watch it. It's fun. It's entertaining. It doesn't have to be Mannix to be entertaining. I've enjoyed every episode that I've watched.
Well, thank you. Almost forgot Jason. Cannot forget Jason. He said he loves listening.
Oh, Jason. Love to Jackie.
Yeah. So we will be starting up with Falcon and the Winter Soldier next week, along with we'll talk about the Snyder Cut Justice League, which will drop on Thursday as well. So it's going to be a pretty interesting conversation. I'll be joined by Paul Story for that episode, and I haven't settled on who the other guest is going to be. We're kind of changing formats up. Rosalinda and Dan, who were with me for WandaVision, are stepping away for a while and going to bring some new people in. So I got to lock in who I'm going to have as my other guest.
Very cool.
Yeah, but we'll do that for, I think it's going to be 6 weeks of that. Then we'll cover The Bad Batch, which will be a new Star Wars animated series. And then we'll go to Loki, which should be a lot of fun as well.
That does sound fun. Yeah,
Tom Hiddleston. So I'm hoping to get Rosalinda back for Loki, because I think that'll be up her alley.
I think that would be good. And Rosalind is always super fun to watch. I adore her.
Oh yeah, she's great. I'm really glad we got her on the show, and she was a lot of fun on that. So, but again, thank you all for coming and watching. And like I said, hit the like, subscribe, and I'd appreciate it. And thank you for participating.
Bye,
Irene. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to see you in person sometime soon.
Have you ever for brunch again?
All right. Take care. Have a good evening, and thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.